As many of you know, this is our third virtual webinar fundraiser with our signature pint glass. Next year will be our 40th anniversary. And we anticipate having that event in a venue where we can toast the occasion together in person. First thing I want to say is thank you. We use that phrase a lot here at UNHP because we know we don't get anything done without our many partners in the community and the nonprofit, for-profit, and government sectors. I want to thank you to our volunteers and our, I'm sorry, I lost my thing here for a second. Thank you to, apologize for that. Thank you to our volunteers from the neighborhood and volunteers from several local colleges, including Fordham, Manhattan, Lehman, College of Mount St. Vincent. Thank you to our amazing lineup of returning Peace Corps volunteers who have interned with us over the years from the IPED program at Fordham. Thank you to those who have donated to support our work. Thank you to our board and staff for their ongoing support and dedicated work. And thank you for joining us today. Over the years, UNHP has prided itself on adapting quickly to meet the changing needs of our community. Created to help nonprofit community housing organizations find the resources to purchase distressed buildings, we built on the community organizing work of the Northwest Bronx Coalition on Housing and the Community Reinvestment Act to create a loan fund with several bank lines of credit to support such acquisitions. In 1989, UNHP was able to hire a staff person to coordinate that work. After we proved that we could make an acquisition loan to a nonprofit or community group, and then successfully worked to get the necessary rehab and refinancing money, usually from our participation loan with a bank in the city of New York. Some of the banks started making the acquisition loans directly, and we adapted our work to provide technical assistance, green weatherization loan assistance, and research on issues that were affecting affordable housing. As the 21st century approached, we saw an uptick in building prices that made it much more difficult for nonprofits to purchase and appropriately renovate buildings. We were concerned that the new buyers might create conditions that could make the housing unaffordable to current residents. And we began to do research work on sales trends, lending practices, and building conditions. And we developed a database to identify buildings that may be headed into financial and physical difficulty. This ultimately grew into the Building Indicator Project, or BIP, which has been utilized by other community organizations, banks, and bank regulators, and led us more recently into collaborations with other organizations on the examination of the financialization of housing, which we will talk more about a little later. We began to look at expense line items that were driving up the costs of operating buildings, like water and sewer and insurance. And that work led us into providing more direct assistance to buildings through asset management and financial oversight. And you'll hear more about that work in a few minutes as well. Working with the tenants in many buildings helped us recognize people's need for additional information and assistance around personal financial issues and banking needs. And our Neighborhood Resource Center started providing that help more than 10 years ago. And the impact of COVID on the Bronx caused us to put an emphasis on helping some people struggling to get into safe and affordable apartments, and some people struggling to stay in safe and affordable apartments with emergency rental assistance. And you're going to hear more about that today as well. We've never pretended at UNHP to have all the answers. We pride ourselves on identifying questions that need to be answered. And we believe that the more people who are directly affected by an issue having input in its resolution, the more likely it is that realistic answers will be found. I'm about to turn the meeting over to the UNHP staff that are working on these issues every day. You'll hear some of the stories that inform our work and motivate us, and you'll get a chance to see and hear from people in a rehab that we've helped to coordinate. To kick off our Bronx Views seminar, I'm going to introduce now Jamelia Abramson, UNHP's Director of Programs. Jamelia.
Thank you, Jim. Good afternoon, everyone. Hola, I'm Jamelia Abramson and I'm the Director of Programs at UNHP. And today I'll speak about direct services and we'll share a few of the stories from our program users. In the 10 years of our Northwest Bronx Resource Center, I've been fortunate to gain a Bronx view, and together with my colleague Laura today, we hope to offer a glimpse on how beautiful but complex this view can be. Thank you for joining us today for this year's fundraiser and for supporting our work with your presence, your partnership, and your donation. We certainly appreciate all of it. My work in promoting financial and housing stability has been shaped by the community and this same view that guides all of our programming. First, I want to say how our approach around our services has been changing over the past 2 years. The pandemic offered us an opportunity to reflect on both how we structure our programs, as well as how programs users experience said services, even if it in a remote way. And I apologize for looking at my second screen here. While we have always prided ourselves on being able to keep our doors open and serving people as they come, limiting the amount of people we serve at a given time has allowed us to dive deeper into conversations around the issues that are affecting our community, such as around financial and housing stability. Perhaps most importantly, these conversations have allowed us to create spaces where residents can come together to share their experiences, find solidarity, and brainstorm potential interventions or solutions. Much of this work has been occurring in the monthly Ask UNHV webinars, monthly banking days that we hosted throughout the borough, and the continued meetings that are tenant-led as part of our Housing Connect group called Affordable Housing Opportunities Right Now, AHORA. AHORA was created in response to both the deep frustration among those who were applying to Housing Connect and the urgent need of tenants for safe and affordable housing. AHORA is made up of 10 Bronx residents. The members of the group are diverse and come from different backgrounds. However, they are all struggling to find apartments in New York City because their income ranges or housing subsidy are very different. And they're not, they don't fit the range of what's available in the Housing Connect portal at the moment. For example, Zoraida and Crystal are mother and daughter who are both looking for their own space. Milady is a recent immigrant from the Dominican Republic working as a home health aide. Marilu is a disabled veteran, and Juan Luis sleeps on his couch to accommodate his aging sick mother. Just like the group members of UNHP AHORA group, UNHP has become extremely frustrated and discouraged with the lottery process. Since 2017, the Northwest Bronx Research Center has helped users send in over 13,000 applications. And as far as we know, only 17 people have received an affordable apartment. There simply isn't enough truly affordable units being made available for Bronxites. And between 2017 and 2019, the data shows that 83% of units available in Housing Connect in the Northwest Bronx had income requirements that were too high for these groups to meet, as well as the other program users that we serve. The average household income of those we work with is about $26,000. Additionally, the online portal is inaccessible and confusing for many, and the selection process is cumbersome. Importantly, this system is even more challenging for those that are facing technology or language barriers to navigate it. The city and elected officials have not provided adequate resources to applicants, which is why it is important to look at an alternative and to elevate these experiences and issues. The need for affordable housing is now, ahora. And I'll be sharing some of the slides so you can get a feel as to like who's part of this group and who's part of the people we serve. In July, the group met with Pierina Sanchez, the Housing and Buildings Committee Chair, Milagros, who works full-time and makes about $27,000 a year, is forced to rent a room. And she said, I have submitted 35 lotteries, and of these, only 2 have been answered. After these rejections, I felt very frustrated and powerless. I'm still unclear why they denied me. I completed each requirement on time and as required within the limited 10 days. Doing so forced me to take days off from work, which is not ideal because it makes it that much harder for me to cover my expenses. Plus, I was told my income is too low, but I currently pay $700 in rent, which is more than the asking rent of the unit that I was interviewed for. These same feelings have long been expressed by those applying for lotteries. To read more about these experiences and these stories, please click on the blog that we're gonna drop in the chat. Not now, but after at 5 p.m. when we're done, maybe as you enjoy your nice drink and you toast with us, you can go back to those blog posts that we're gonna be sharing throughout the today's event. Another person said, casi siempre me dan números muy altos de lotería y duran mucho para seleccionar a una persona. Almost always my lottery log number is too high and they take forever to invite us for an interview. To summarize, another tenant said that their experience after calling 311 was not the greatest, and I quote her, "The people who design these sites need to think of the elderly who cannot navigate the internet very well. I am not elderly, but I had a hard time. I found out by trial and error." Another way in which we have been creating spaces for community members to share their experiences is through our monthly Ask UNHP webinars. Around 150 people have participated in these bilingual Zoom sessions, and with the help of the staff, they've been able to log in. At first, this was quite the ordeal to get an elderly or someone who's not comfortable with technology to have the ability to even attempt to open their email and log into a Zoom was a lot. So we're very proud of our client base and our program users that have been able to follow along. At each of these events, we provided timely and reliable information for the community, and we've helped people avoid costly and unnecessary services. Topics have been tailored to the community as different situations come up, and they've included student loan forgiveness, the child tax credit, self-employment business tip, banking products, and rental assistance. For several months, ERAP was a very hot topic during these discussions. We've also had guest speakers to add to the wealth of information, and I see some of you in the room here, so thank you for that. Lastly, for over a year now, we have been working with the Lower East Side People's Federal Credit Union and the newly formed Bronx Financial Access Coalition to bring affordable banking services to the Bronx. We're very excited about this. UNHP has partnered to bring the mobile branch to Morris Heights and the areas around our office. You can read more again in the chat. We will drop that link. Now community members have the opportunity to join the credit union, which is committed to not only providing accessible, affordable products tailored to the needs of its member, but also promoting financial awareness. Nothing like banking on wheels to make it accessible to neighborhoods that have been underserved for a very long time. So we're very happy to be part of this coalition with 3 other Bronx groups. Our super at West Tremont, who was the first to join at that site, said, I especially like how it gives people access to financial counseling and loans. I wish I knew about credit unions before. Now I'll pass it over to Laura, my colleague, so you can hear more about the experiences that we see on a day-to-day at the resource center from our users, and some of whom live in our UNHP building, and our seniors or foreign-born, so about their struggle. Laura.
Good afternoon, all. My name is Laura Guerrero, and I am the Housing and Financial Advocate at UNHP. At the Northwest Bronx Resource Center, we experience firsthand the need of the financial education in our community. In my day-to-day work, I help clients navigate different issues they face when they try to access various programs. For example, many of our clients who are looking to apply to the rent freeze program need help scanning their documents required for the application, so that the elderly and disabled tenants do not have to make the long trip to the city agency office downtown. I also facilitate our monthly hours at West Tremont, which have allowed us to connect with tenants living in UNHP buildings. We were able to help with ERAB application, which required uploading many documents. We have also been able to refer them to TSU, financial coaching, and banks that offer affordable products. I would like to take this time to share a recent success story. Anacleto Hernandez, one of our program users who we first met at West Tremont back in June 2019, needed to move after his wife Norma suffered from a stroke. They had been living in a 5-floor walk-up paying $1,190, which was no longer accessible to them, not only because of his wife's stroke, but also because of the high rent they were paying. Freezing the rent allowed them to make ends meet and still pay rent with one income. The next 2 years were a struggle, which led us to continue to help them submit applications for many Housing Connect lotteries, over 35 applications to be exact. Finally, he was selected to move with the application process to a senior building on Arthur Avenue. Unknowingly, the management company requested him to send the same application material multiple times. I was able to work together with Anacleto and his wife to send the documents via fax, mail, and email. Finally, after several attempts, the management company accepted his application. This appointment in a senior building came at the perfect time because his health also started to deteriorate, and getting to the doctor's appointment became even harder for them. He and his wife have since moved into the new apartment with a Section 8 voucher. They are thrilled with the new living situation. They went from paying $1,190 to paying $313. They now have $800 in disposable income per month. And this is only one of many success stories that we see here at the Resource Center. It is great to see how our work has made an impact in the needs of our community. We're not only able to help people address the present financial issue that they are facing, we're also able to provide welcoming and supportive space where community members know that they can come to when they need help. Through my work, my eyes have been open to the lack of information made available to my community. While it is deeply frustrating to see how opportunities and assistance are not made accessible to those who need them, learning more about the options that are available has ultimately made me feel more optimistic. Oftentimes, relatively simple solutions, from helping people scan and upload documents, providing applications help over the phone, and being able to answer questions, can have a huge impact to the people we're working with, and be the difference between someone having a permanent affordable housing or not. If we continue to come together, share our experiences, and work to find solutions, we can help those in our community access the opportunities and resources they're entitled to. Thank you all for your continued support for UNHP. Next, Jacob will be sharing more about his work.
Thanks, Laura. Hi, everyone. My name is Jacob Udell. I lead our research and data work at UNHP. It's really nice to be here with you all. So as Jim spoke about a little bit earlier, anyone who's been at our events before knows about the sort of driving force behind our building indicator project and any additional research we do. So I think of us as a group that has really seen the arc of disinvestment to overinvestment in the Bronx over the almost 40 years, right? The 39 years that we've been in existence. And our research work really came out of a set of insights about 20 years ago about the inflection point in that arc, right? That fast rising property prices and fast rising rent in the Bronx were seeming to go, far beyond what we think it actually requires to run a building responsibly. I just want to make a special note that I see both Greg Jost and Vanessa Lanier here, who have been huge parts of that over time. So hi both, and thank you. And as have so many others on the call today. So since the beginning of our research and data work, we've spent a lot of our time and work on the effect of that trend, on the effect of those rising prices on both building conditions and on tenants and on tenants themselves, right? So more and more of those trends have been felt across New York City, the state, and the country. And right now, it feels like there's never been more interest in sort of understanding and intervening in those dynamics. And in fact, as Jim mentioned earlier, this trend that we have been trying to understand for so long now has a name, right? It's called the financialization of housing, right? Which is a term that describes the tendency for owners and investors to value housing as a financial asset, sort of like a stock or a bond. And given the name of our fundraiser today, I think it's fair to say that our research and data work is really about how to bring a Bronx view to the question of financialization, of where our housing market stands right now and where it should be going. So we're asking questions like, how do we ground the more sort of academic and theoretical debates about speculation or financialization in what we understand to be the experiences of Bronx tenants, right? What Laura and Jamelia described. And in the actual ins and outs of building operations, right? Or how do we bring our data and expertise and that of our partners really to bear on this set of questions? So one way we recently have taken a step in that direction is through a report called Gambling with Homes or Investing in Communities, which we put out a few months ago in collaboration with LISC and their National Research and Evaluation team. The research was really an attempt to drill down into the effects of speculation and financialization for tenants, and actually try to determine the connection between the housing market and outcomes for tenants in a empirical manner. So the research was an amazing and really productive collaboration with LISC, and it was in many ways the culmination of lots of years of our work at UNHP. So on the data side, the report uses our decade plus of BIP data and our long-term tracking of sales prices as a source for the analysis. It's worth mentioning that the report also uses a lot of the expertise that we've built up with the help of many people on the call. It's not the first time I've said on a fundraiser that I see people on our call who I've nudged to ask questions about the real estate market or whatever else. But through those conversations and through our sort of institutional knowledge of the way that real estate markets work, particularly property values, and debt levels, we really have developed an expertise that sort of serves as a theoretical basis for the kinds of questions that we asked in the report. Anyway, so what came out of the analysis was, I think, powerful. It sort of uncovered empirical support for what we and other community-based organizations have understood to be true for a long time. Right. First, speculation via rising property prices has indeed run rampant in neighborhoods like the Northwest Bronx and elsewhere in New York City, with high concentrations of low income and or Black or brown households. And second, in buildings where speculation has taken place in particular, tenants who live in those buildings are more likely to have experience bad outcomes, things such as poor building conditions, evictions and harassment, and the like. And there's a lot of detail in the report. I encourage you all to look at it, and other writing through the links of recent work that will drop into the chat right now. As Jamelia said, you don't have to look at it right now, but it's to take a look at later. But in short, I think the report serves as sort of one statement in challenging the way the real estate market for rental housing has been allowed to evolve over these last 40 years, over the time that UNHP has been working. It's sort of challenging the notion that we have to acquiesce to ever rising values for land and housing and just get the best outcomes we can, sort of given that unchangeable reality. That theory hasn't worked in the Bronx, and as is becoming clear, in so many other places where poor and working class renter households live in particular. The report with LISC, it's important to note, also points to various solutions to that crisis, really focusing on the flip side of the financialized housing market, what we call sort of the preservation of housing, or prioritizing the ownership and operations of housing by community-based or mission-driven entities, groups that know best how to keep rental housing, both safe and affordable. And I think in terms of our general research and data work, preservation is really another thing that we can actually bring to the table, right? Really, again, along with many other people on this call, knowing what it takes to run and steward affordable housing, and using that expertise to point a way out of the current reality. And in my opinion, the importance of focusing on policy specifically around housing preservation is really important right now. And we at UNHP are thinking about that on a few levels. First, we're concerned about the physical conditions of our housing stock and about kind of bigger and longer term questions about reinvestment and building rehabilitation in both the short and long term. Over COVID and really since 2019, we've seen significant upticks in outstanding housing code violations, indicating what we think is safe to say are pretty serious signs of deferred maintenance. And the data, have been corroborated by the things that we're hearing on the ground, both through the resource center and through other community-based organizations, right? Tenants finding it much more difficult to contact managers or get repairs or just, live decently in general. We've long known, right, together with many on the call, that it's really preservation-minded entities that are the solution to that. They both reinvest a much higher percentage of rental income, back into the building, and are also much more attuned to sort of longer-term rehab needs. And this is especially true in the old stock rent-stabilized housing, that is still far and away the most important piece of affordable housing in New York City. So what we've done work on the flip side, showing how when we do see operating statements from the sort of private, unsubsidized, multifamily subset of housing, those buildings are often being run at expense levels that are about half or less of what we think is necessary to keep these types of properties safe and decent. And what we're talking about here is, I think, the fact that financialization is, I think, the fact that sort of, as financialization has been allowed to proliferate, it's meant that both lots of housing in the Bronx and citywide were in precarious positions even before COVID, and are more so now. And also that financialization and that trend makes potential solutions to that problem harder, right? It marginalizes the preservation type model. It makes it harder to acquire new properties or refinancing or to refinance existing ones. And to deal with the real issue of deferred maintenance in the long term, in the short term and the long term, I think it's especially important right now that we bring back attention to preservation and find ways to expand the opportunities for preservation-minded entities to intervene more and more. And that brings me to the second point I wanted to make, which is that now is actually a really good opportunity to encourage the preservation type model in multifamily housing. There's been this interesting thing that's happened specifically among rent stabilized housing, that over the last few years, even as prices for land and housing across the country and across our city have gone absolutely crazy, in rent stabilized housing, values have actually dropped, and pretty significantly in some cases. We at UNHP understand this to be largely due to the durability of pro-tenant policies and the changing sort of profit calculus in this sector of housing. It's unclear whether this correction is going to last and for how long. But if it does, it probably does come with both pain and opportunity. On the one hand, as I mentioned, we as an organization believe that the market has produced real estate values that have long since been really divorced from what it takes to run housing safely and decently. But on the other hand, a stubborn drop in values may bring distress along the lines of the deferred maintenance I was talking about, as well as other things. All of this, I think, underscores that there's an opportunity to intervene with preservation type tools if the city and state in particular are able to and willing to focus on that. There's so much attention paid these days to new development and new supply, but we at UNHP, I think, especially in our research and data work, are particularly attuned to how to improve outcomes in the existing housing stock using preservation. As we often say to people that come to the resource center door or in different conversations, that on some level, your best chances at affordable housing is where you already live. And that, I think, is we want to make that more and more possible through our research and data work. So a big question for us in the coming years, I think, is going to be how do we advocate for housing policies and a housing system altogether that incentivizes really the preservation type model. In a time with so many unknowns and lots of instability, we need to be relying on that experience, that expertise, and all those lessons that we at UNHP have learned from our work and the work of many others on this call. I think we're in a good position to do that research and policy work in a way that really advocates for that in the coming years and into the long future. So that's, sort of what I wanted to share, and all that's a good transition to my colleague, Brendan Mitchell, who's going to share a little bit about how we're thinking of keeping the buildings that we're involved in safe and affordable in the long term, really given all the challenges that that task presents. So I'll pass it over to Brendan.
Thanks, Jacob. And thanks everybody for joining us for another virtual fundraiser and for your continued support over the years of our mission. My name is Brendan Mitchell, and I oversee the real estate and finance operations here at UNHP. Over the years, we have shared our advocacy work around more equitable water and sewer rates, rising insurance rates, and a number of other operational costs that affect affordable housing. We have continued to study these issues and share information with mission-based affordable housing providers throughout the year. And while we continue to push for change on our own, we have also changed the way that we raise these issues with government agency and policymakers. In June of last year, we were actually invited to join a coalition of over 20 nonprofit affordable housing providers known as the Community Development Advocacy Committee, put together by ANHD. We were grateful to be asked to join, and our work with this group includes discussions around the New York City housing lottery, which Jamelia shared about, tax credit allocation, insurance rates, everyday operational issues that we feel disproportionately affect community-based housing, and being part of the group has really proved to be worthwhile at a number of levels. As a group, we're able to advocate for changes directly with the Commissioner of HPD and other decision makers in a way that we think produces results at the city level as well as internally. We're able to share resources and experiences and recommendations for navigating this sort of new and increasingly difficult landscape of affordable housing development for nonprofits. Another focus of ours over the past year has been increasing our efforts to incorporate renewable energy into our housing portfolio. For us and many other mission-driven housing providers, it's always a struggle to visualize and take on these types of projects when you're constantly trying to make sure you can just cover, the basic operating costs. And so we've been working with a solar consulting group, which specializes in affordable housing, to assess which of our projects can be good candidates for solar panels and how we can creatively finance these projects on limited resources. Ultimately, we identified 3 projects totaling 7 buildings, which we plan to begin solar construction in early 23. The projects are going to be financed through a number of sources and incentives, including the New York City property tax credit for eligible solar projects, New York State incentives through NYSERDA, as well as federal tax credits, which were included in the recently passed Inflation Reduction Act, which now allows nonprofit ownership structures to qualify for a fully refundable tax rebate, which we were previously ineligible for based on our 501c3 status. This rebate in our case is going to cover nearly 40% of the project costs, and that's only because they're regulated affordable and in low-income communities, and that's really a game changer for us. All 3 of these projects will be nearly 100% financed through incentives and refundable tax credits, and each have a payback period anywhere from 3 to 6 years. There is likely going to be some short-term funding needed, which is going to be provided by the UNHP Green Loan Fund. Once that payback period is over, these new panels are going to produce nearly enough energy to power the lights in the public areas, inside and outside, superintendent apartments, laundry, community rooms, and really free up those funds for other operating needs, which, as I mentioned, are constantly increasing. When it comes to incorporating energy efficiency measures into affordable housing, oftentimes the cost of these measures can be prohibitive. That's why we constantly stress the importance of incentives and matching programs to elected officials at all levels of government. One program which nearly every single one of our buildings has benefited from at some point or another is the Weatherization Assistance Program. For the past year, we've actually been assisting Edison Arms HDFC, a 70-unit senior housing project on Decatur Avenue, navigate and implement a full energy retrofit being performed by the Northwest Bronx Community and Clergy Coalition. The project is managed by Rose Hill Management, who also manages Rose Hill Apartments, a 120-unit project on the outskirts of Fordham University. Both Rose Hill and Edison Arms were originally developed by Fordham University, and shout out to our longtime board member, Joe Mariana, who is, I saw on the call somewhere. And these projects serve the low-income senior population here here in the Bronx and operate off of HAP contracts with HUD, which are fixed amounts. So the difference between Rose Hill and Edison Arms is that Rose Hill was rehabilitated in 2007. And so among other things, it was able to, receive upgraded lighting and windows and boilers and refrigerators, where Edison Arms is largely original to its 1991 construction. And when operating on fixed rents, it's very hard to pay for 30 years of improvements to be brought to current standards. And so over the last 10 years, we've seen prices of repairs, utilities, insurance, and water increase at this incredible rate. And programs like weatherization and others like it really allow housing providers to improve building systems and tenant quality of life without passing that cost along to tenants, which is really important to us. The weatherization program retrofit included complete boiler replacement, windows, refrigerators, LED lighting, exhaust fans, smoke and CO detectors, and much more. Edison Arms was required to cover a portion of the retrofit with weatherization covering the rest. And not only do these types of energy efficiency improvements reduce the carbon footprint of the building, but they also improve the quality of life for tenants. And additionally, they free up, income on a monthly basis to cover these rising insurance and water costs that we've been talking about. Next, we are going to be showing a brief video that our summer intern from Fordham University, Samantha Sayre, has worked very hard on. In the video, you're going to hear from Claire Benitez, the property manager at Rose Hill Management. Claire oversees both Edison Arms and Rose Hill Apartments. She's been with the organization for over 10 years and really knows these projects very well. She's always working towards improving the two properties and always make sure that the tenants' priorities are number one. You're also going to hear from Altagracia Consuegra. Altagracia is the resident social worker at Edison Arms. She was not only vital to the vetting process and applying for weatherization funds, but really resident communications and making sure that tenants felt a part of the process as both the building systems and their individual apartments were improved. So as you'll be able to see, Altagracia truly cares about her residents, and that goes both ways. Lastly, while we thank some of our generous sponsors, you will get to hear from Maisie, a longtime Edison Arms resident, and she's going to perform a song which she once performed with Johnny Cash. So with that, I will ask Sam to put on the video.
Oops.
So while Sam gets that up and running, feel free to use emojis. I see some coming in or typing in the chat, guys. So doesn't have to be so quiet. Thank you, Heather.
So my name is Claire Benitez. I am the property manager for Rose Hill Housing Management, and we manage 2 low-income senior citizen housing projects in the Bronx. UNHP has always been a valuable a friend and partner at both locations. For years, UNHP came to Rose Hill Apartments and Edison Arms Apartments and did tax-free tax days for us. During the pandemic, we managed to create a system that would allow us to still collect documents from tenants, and then they were processed by Jumelia over at UNHP, which was wonderful for the tenants. They didn't lose those services because UNHP was able to adapt. It was great. The other program that UNHP has been very valuable in, recently Edison Arms was selected by the Northwest Bronx Community and Clergy Coalition to take part in the weatherization assistance program. Edison Arms was built in the early and mid 90s. It has remained largely original. Its roof is original, its boiler is original, and the weatherization program allowed for large changes to be made to some of those systems. When I knew that this large project was coming, I reached out to Jim Buckley and Brendan Mitchell over at UNHP, and I requested they bring their expertise and knowledge to the changes that were coming. And they were wonderful throughout the whole process, very attentive, and they brought their expertise to the many changes, especially with the boilers and the windows and the lights and everything that was coming. And it was great to partner with them throughout that process.
Hi, my name is Altagracia Consuegra. I am the Social Service Coordinator at Edison Arts. I have plenty of things that I do here, and I really love what I do. If I provide you a list of the things that I do, they are a lot. So the first thing I do is coordinate social events. Every trend topic that we have that benefit the seniors, we always celebrate Father's and Mother's Day together. We do many activities in the summertime to bring our community together. I also do my social work tasks. They include a paperwork, connect them with the resources that are available in the community, try to make sure that they schedule the doctor's appointment on time, make sure that the family visit them. This is the most important thing. They are here, but they are not alone. They are family here. It's not only neighbors. They are really considered themselves family.
Hi, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Maisie Robertson, WWA and Women's 70, and CBS and NBC. Please help me, I'm falling in love with you. Close the door to temptation. Don't let me walk through. For I mustn't want you, but darling I do. Please help me, I'm falling in love with you. Please help me, I'm falling, and let it be a sin. Close the door to temptation. Don't let me walk in. For I mustn't want you, but darling I do. Please help me, I'm falling in love with you.
Very good. Good job.
Oh,
Beautiful. That was so nice.
that was nice. Thank you, Maisie. And this is truly it was a unique segue to the final part of our fundraiser. Thank you again to Claire and to Altagracia for participating in the video. Sam, for your work, in creating the video, and of course, to Maisie, who's, a great character, a Bronx transplant. I'll share, in our thank you, I'll share an interview we did with her in 2014. And, she's very grateful to have a place like Edison Arms. She was really struggling. Her health was failing, and she was trying to get by on Social Security. And Edison Arms has really made a big difference because it's affordable to her. My name is Kathy Clark, and I'm the Director of Development here at UNHP. At the tail end of Maisie's video, you did see Maisie singing over some of our sponsors, and we're going to share them again at the end. I wanted to say thank you again. We are really grateful for everyone on the call today. At some point, we had over 80 people, which is awesome. And we appreciate your engagement and your participation. And we do appreciate your support. Your support gives UNHP the freedom to do our work based on what we see is needed in our community from our Bronx point of view. And that freedom is really a privilege to be able to work towards our mission and to change as the Bronx changes and needs change. I want to talk a little bit about what we talk about when we talk about a Bronx point of view. I think Vanessa, our board member, is on the call today, and she used to call it the Bronx difference, which I like too. So that point of view is grounded in our day-to-day experiences that we shared with you today. It shaped our community organizing roots in that, as Jim stated, we really do believe that the people in the groups experiencing the problems need to be part of the solution for it to be effective. And it's a pragmatic point of view. We're always asking the question, is what we're doing actually preserving housing? Is it actually keeping people in the Bronx in their housing? And is that housing in good condition? Are the services we're offering, do they really help people? Do they help people stay housed? Do they help people build financial stability? And I think that's really important. We're not interested in doing it if it's not working. So multifamily lending, financial services, public programs, community development, and affordability, they all look a bit different from a Bronx point of view. Jacob mentioned very strongly that one of our points of view is that preservation is critical. And that's because affordable housing is where people live now. So preserving the affordability of your plain old 6- and 7-story apartment buildings that are all over the Bronx is really the key to keeping families in their homes, keeping them affordable and in good repair. It provides people who live here now with an affordable, decent place. So that's why preservation is really an important point of view that we share. Sometimes our point of view is shaped through experiences and victories that are hard won. So all of the community-based and community-developed housing, was developed out of vacant buildings that were abandoned. So the years of disinvestment in the Bronx gave rise to a community development movement that we're part of, and many of the people on this call today are part of. And our point of view is that we need to remain committed to build on these hard-won victories to keep community-based housing decent and affordable. And we do that in all the ways that Brendan shared. We try to save energy. We look at operating costs. We work with other Bronx building operators to seek solutions to rising operating costs and increased regulatory burdens. Laura and Jamelia shared how our point of view comes from working directly with people. Laura, thank you for that story of Anacleto and his wife. So many people, not only does the Bronx not have great Wi-Fi access, but so many people struggling with technology, and public programs now really do rely on people being having the technology, having access to the internet. So we try to bridge some of that, and it shapes our point of view. A couple of people mentioned, how we took such advantage of the emergency rental assistance program, which offered, could pay the back rent of tenants so that they could remain housed. And in the case of our community developed housing, would provide a, a good source of operating income for the rent that had been lost when people weren't working. But our initial look at the application, it had a landlord portion, it had a tenant portion, it required scanning, it required uploading multiple documents. So we were able to work with our private managers, Duggart and Sycamore, and with the Resource Center to really get ahead of what we knew from our Bronx point of view was going to be a challenge. So we were all able to work with tenants, get the information out there, and we received over $800,000 in COVID rent relief, and well over 150 tenants will be able to stay in their apartments, and that back rent was paid. So, so the Bronx point of view also comes from that experience we have working with people. And what is a Bronx point of view without the voices of Bronx residents? Marilou has been G-chatting me. Marilou is a member of our Bronx Aurora group, and she said, wow, I can't believe so many people are on this call. I hope they'll help us to make sure that affordable housing is really affordable for people. And I said, yes, I hope that too. So our Bronx point of view is definitely rooted in the fact that the people and the organizations that are experiencing the problems need to be part of the solution. And we're committed to lifting those Bronx voices. We're committing to, share our experiences so that, we can move together to create solutions to, frankly, what are very difficult and long-standing problems in our community. As I mentioned, I'm the director of development, but I am also the director of the pint glasses that I can't even possibly hold all in my hand without breaking them. And if you have participated in our fundraiser, we have a beautiful Bronx View Buildings Data and Stories glass coming your way, either by hand or by UPS. So, as we close tonight, again, a big thank you. And we can raise our glasses if we have them, or imagine as they come your way, to what I think are the best qualities of a Bronx point of view. Determination. The Bronx has certainly had its challenges, and in many ways, 40 years later, we're sharing some of the successes that grew out of those very challenges. So we commit to be determined. Perseverance. As we approach our 40th year, we're not going to give up. We are gaining strength from our many community victories in the past, from the people we work with, and we will continue to move ahead. And the final quality, I think, is hope. It's a hope that's based in reality, a hope that is based on our experience, on our past successes, and a hope that is committed to lifting the truth of Bronx voices, remaining loyal to our mission, our Bronx views, and our Bronx community. Cheers. Thank you again, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
We'll give a few more seconds for our sponsor logos to
Well done, everyone.
by.
It was fantastic.